Jen Birch was a normal person. She was a hairdresser by trade and owned her own salon and was living a relatively normal life in Anchorage, Alaska, until the day she was faced with the opportunity to either face the sex trafficking operation that was taking place right in front of her or walk away. Jen chose to be an everyday hero and face it, and it would cost her 3 years of her life, several phone calls to law enforcement, wearing a wire for the FBI, and eventually facing the trafficker head on. Ultimately, Jen took an unconventional route to shut down this operation, but she felt compelled to help because nobody else was coming to rescue the women. In today's episode, I will be interviewing Jen as she shares the full story of how she encountered a sex trafficking operation and got it shut down. And make sure you watch to the end because this story has an unbelievable and heart-wrenching conclusion. Now, on with the episode.
Recording. Okay. All right. So today I am here with Jen. Actually, Jen, I haven't even said your last name the whole time that I met you. So if you want, is it Jen Biersch?
It's Birch.
There we go. Glad I didn't try to add that. Okay. So I'm here with Jen Birch. We met through Facebook, and we met because we started talking a little bit. I heard about your story, and I thought it was so incredible. And I didn't have to beg you. I just asked, and you were very polite and said, "Yes, absolutely. I'll be happy to share my story." And so, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and just jump right in with it. All right. So for the first question, how much did you know about human trafficking before this all happened?
I really didn't know much at all. And I mean, when you think about human trafficking, again, there's that fine line between prostitution and all these other, lines that, I mean, maybe I had heard a few stories, but I don't think I'd ever really known about how much it persists just in our daily lives.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's probably like the case for a lot of people is it's like a thing that you know about, but you don't know about it really like to a great extent. And then just to be clear for everybody who's watching this, you're up in Anchorage, right? So
I am.
yeah, and so I think that just kind of like it kind of speaks to it. We were talking obviously before we started this, but it speaks to how wide and how far reaching human trafficking really is that I mean it's all the way up in Anchorage, and you obviously knew about it beforehand, even if it was to a limited degree. So I guess, do you want to just share a little bit about what your like situation where you were when this took place, right? So obviously we're talking about human trafficking here. So kind of like your vocation and how this kind of came to be.
Sure. I'm a hairdresser, and I've been a hairdresser for over 20 years. And I actually have a salon that I own, and I've owned for 14 years, but I've actually been in this location for just about 20 years.
Okay.
So I was there for many years, just as like a booth renter, and then eventually I bought the salon. And so I've just been there long enough. And the reason I'm saying that is just to kind of give you a gauge of like, I knew the area well. I understood the ins and outs of the building and the landlord, the comings and goings of how things went. So, and it was, sorry.
No, it's all good. Because that leads right into our next question. So what was the first sign or like the first signs that something was off?
Sure. So this space next to us had been, there was a bridal store in this little strip mall, and they had been renting the end unit as like their separate place for tuxedos. And then they decided it was just hard to kind of have two separate spaces because they had to keep an employee, at the desk at each one. And so they just decided they were going to, compile it all back in together. So they vacated the end unit. Our landlord rented it to someone else. It was probably empty for a good 6 or 8 months before, it might have even been a year before it even got rented. Because my landlord is just not a very motivated person. He's probably owned this building for 40 years. And so he doesn't really care, whether it's filled or not or getting rent. So So yeah, so these people rent, and I noticed that they're starting to like redo the place. You know, they've got, you know, construction going on in there. They're building it out inside.
Right.
And, you know, so that's kind of happening. And then one day I come in, we're closed on Sundays and Mondays, and we're getting ready to open on Tuesday. And I come in on a Monday, and I realized that they had been sheetrocking that weekend, and they had gone through and sanded everything down, but we share an air system. So it had just basically blown all of that sheetrock dust into my business. And so now there was about a 1/4 inch of dust over everything, all the product, every single shelf, every single desk, everywhere, everything.
Right.
So I called my landlord. I was pretty upset, and I was like, hey, you need to send someone over here to clean this, because I got people opening tomorrow. You know, I'm like, we got customers. You can't have this happening. He was like, okay, well, I'll call them and let them know. So he called them, and they sent one of the, get out of here, one of these, the head girl, I guess you'd call her. I don't know what you'd call her, madam. You want to call her they sent her over, and that was when I met Jenny.
Okay.
And then I met her then. She did not speak a lot of English. And that seemed odd to me, of course. Like, why would you send this person over when you clearly have just had construction people in there? Why wouldn't you send a construction person over to clean it, right? Like, that was
Right.
my thought process, was you just had people in there for 2 weeks. Why are you not going to send one of those people in?
Yeah.
So it makes me really uncomfortable, and I end up, like, she wipes off a few things up in the front, and, you know, I'm kind of trying to ask little questions and just kind of, you know, feel out the situation a little bit. Because at this point I was still trying to figure out, is my landlord putting in basically a business that's going to be a conflict of interest with me because I owned a salon? So I was still trying to kind of figure out, like, what's going on with that. So I think it wasn't long. I mean, it was a couple of months when we finally realized, like, it didn't take long to figure out what was going on. Like, we're just a busy place, and we have all these windows in the front. So it was like really hard not to notice the comings and goings of this place. And secondly, just by appearance, it just appears that this place is part of my business. You know, there's sort of like the windows just kind of like separate where there's a wall, but you can't really see that necessarily from the outside. So it kind of looks like the windows are connected. So I think just over time, people just kind of thought that that was part of my business. So yeah, it was odd. Like, oftentimes you'd have people walking inside, they'd walk in the front door and realize I'm not in the right place, and then walk back out and then walk next door.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was becoming more and more obvious that, like, there were only men that ever came. Never one single woman that I ever saw go in there ever once,
Right.
besides myself. So that definitely tipped me off that, you know, that was happening. And then, of course, you know, it gets worse.
Was it clear that it was a massage parlor?
Yeah, I think, and then of course I'm kind of nosy, so I go next door once they're open. And yeah, I think that was when I first realized, you walk in, you know, there's like 2 chairs that have slippers sitting underneath them, and if there's shoes there, that means someone's in there, and if there's slippers there, that means there's an available spot. But the door was locked. There were cameras all over the place. You had to, like, ding dong to get in. It was like very clear that this wasn't just a regular massage place. Like, why would you have such a, you know, Fort Knox lock system on your front door if you're just a massage place that's open 9 to 5?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those are good signs. So you kind of like picked up on it. It piqued your radar. So what did you do to try to stop it then? What was that process like?
So I mean, I think it was about a year of it just kind of ramping up. I think first I just kind of tried to kind of think, well, it's not really my business, you know, and again, it's like, I had actually had a friend that I grew up with who chose that as a profession. That was her choice of what to do. And like, I'm not going to tell another woman how to live their life, you know? So I kind of, again, not really understanding the extent of what sex trafficking really is. You know, I also don't want to tell someone else what they should or shouldn't be doing to make money in their life. Like that's a prerogative, you know? But as I start to realize this is not a choice, I realized the girls are actually living next door. That was really, I think, when it all shifted for me, was when I realized 100% for sure that they lived there every single day of every single day. It wasn't just 1 or 2 nights that they stayed. It was every day. These girls did not leave. There was one girl who got to leave, and that was it. So that's when I really started to realize, like, okay, this is disgusting. Like this is, and just you could feel the energy shift in the mall. It was like this very dark, very ugly energy, and it affected my business in a very serious way.
Sure.
I was concerned at one point that I may have to shut my business down. And I think that was when I finally had to kind of cut my losses and say, you know, I can't help out anymore. Like I have to kick them out. So.
But before you got to that, you told me previously that you reached out to the police and they kind of handed you off to a federal group, like Homeland Security or something like that. And then from Homeland Security, they might have connected you with like FBI or something. So can you just like go into that a little bit, what that looked like?
Sure. So I ended up, I think, calling just the non-emergency number for the police, and just basically saying, look, this is what I'm seeing, and I'm really concerned, and I feel unsafe. And I think those were kinds of the things that I said. And it took a long time for someone to actually contact me. In fact, I figured they just said, you know, they weren't going to contact me back. It was several months. But yes, it ended up being someone from Homeland Security, because most of these women are working on green cards. They're not citizens. So it's not like you're just dealing with someone you're going to arrest for prostitution and put right back out onto the street again. These are girls who are working on green cards. So they're easy to disappear.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like these girls could literally be disappeared very easily.
Okay.
So, you know, they put me in touch, this woman, then, we just decide how we're going to go about it. And for me, it was writing down license plate numbers and identifying pictures. Okay. So I just spent a lot of time. We wrote down every single license plate number of pretty much every person that we saw come and go in there. Mm-hmm. And it was really great. We definitely connected a lot of other massage places together by doing that. So I think for them, it was just, you know, understanding who's all working together. Are they all working independently? No, they're definitely working all together, and they're moving girls between them. And that was another thing that I saw. You know, I saw a girl show up, and she had suitcases with her, and, you know, this guy literally drops her off on the sidewalk outside of his place, you know, and she rolls her suitcases on in there. But that's a girl I'd never seen before. So you could clearly see they were like, but again, the head girl, she never changed. Other girls would change, but she never changed. Okay. So that was during that.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go right ahead.
No, I was going to say that's why I was able to kind of form a little bit of a friendship with her and just kind of try to, you know, feel out the situation. But yeah.
So in doing that, again, I don't know how comfortable you are sharing all of it, but
I'll share it all.
Okay. So you told me before that you ended up wearing a wire, right? And then you ended up going in there. So at any point while this is all taking place, was there ever a part where you were concerned or kind of felt like, oh, maybe I like stepped a little too far into this? Did that ever pop up?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, I definitely, as I started to realize how connected all of these places were, it did start to kind of scare me a little bit, just as far as like, you know, I'm a pretty predictable person. I come to work at the same time. You know, I run this business. I'm not going anywhere. If they really wanted to find me, they could have found me. But then on the flip side of things, I kind of felt like, you know, come at me, bro. Like, I carried a gun in my purse every day. I kept it in my drawer at work. It was like, I definitely, you know, didn't sit by and let myself become a victim. Yeah. So yeah, of course, there were definitely moments where I felt like that, but in the end, it's like, you know, am I going to let that stop me
from doing what you think is right?
Thing? No.
Yeah. So in the end, so you contacted, so you see what's taking place, you contact the police, you get connected to the federal authorities, you spend a year or so dealing with them, and you connect all this other stuff together. So how does this all end? How does it come to be that like this whole saga ends?
Gotcha. I think, you know, I mean, for 2 full years, I worked with them trying to, you know, bring this place down, or maybe I had grandiose ideas of what would happen. Maybe that was never the intention. I don't know. I guess I really never asked. But I think just realizing that she would physically have to say the words, I'm a victim of sex trafficking and I need your help. She was never going to say that. And so I think in the end, I realized, you know, no matter what, I was going to continue to put myself into positions that may or may not be safe. And I was not going to be able to change the situation that she was in. But on the other side of that, I don't think that I would have done it any differently. I think that every person that can just get that information out there, I think the more that we put pressure on the people that are servicing these people, you know, if they didn't have customers, they wouldn't be in business. So, you know, I did my very best to make those men as uncomfortable as possible.
Right. And you said at one point you logged into, you went on Rub Maps, right? And you.
Yes, I did. Yes, one of my customers actually told me about it.
Yeah, and you said that they knew you were there or something, right?
Oh, there were lots of reviews in there saying don't park in front of the salon. They're definitely watching you, and park in the back, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it was good. It was really good. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have done it any differently. And I don't think anybody else should hesitate. Like, I think that, you know, if you have an observant eye, and that's something that if it makes you feel sick and you definitely don't want to watch that happening, like, you should do something.
Right. And that goes right into the next question, which I was going to ask you if you had any advice or caution for anyone watching this, but I think you kind of answered that in saying, you know, if it's something that's on your heart, you know, get involved to whatever degree you're comfortable with. Obviously, like, keep yourself safe, but, you know, you reached out to the authorities first. And when that didn't work, you know, you didn't keep on putting yourself in harm's way. Instead, from what you told me, you went right to your landlord and told the landlord, like, you know, kind of getting him to empathize and understand that, you know, there's people being victimized over here. So this is going to be dangerous for you as a business person. And so I think that's the thing that's probably like most amazing to me, is that you went through all like the right channels, but then when those didn't work, you didn't give up on it. And then you said, okay, let me go ahead and try to apply pressure over here. So you didn't like run into like John Wayne with a gun or something crazy, but you still just kept on working at it. So, and I hope that I detailed that correctly, because I just wanted to make sure that everybody got that.
It definitely came to a very, very emotional end. I mean, it ended with me really kind of having, I wouldn't say an emotional breakdown, but I definitely had a bit of a crying breakdown in my landlord's office. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot watch this happening. It is not right. You shouldn't be a part of it if you're doing this. I've done my part to try to fix it. Now you need to do your part. And that's basically where I left it with him, was that if you continue to rent to these people, you have to know exactly what you're doing. Right. And I tried not to hold back. I mean, I told him in detail what the Maps reviews said, what was going on next door. I gave him websites so he could go and check it out himself if he didn't believe me.
And so what ended up happening then? I know that you said that the landlord, this will be the last thing, we'll wrap it up here, but the landlord ended up kind of evicting them, getting them out of there or ending their lease. And so to that particular group, what ended up happening to them? Did they give up on trafficking and decide to like go back to school, or what happened?
So yeah, they moved about 3 blocks over to a different mall.
Right, which is just appalling. And I mean, it's really a call for like serious legislation to do something to kind of keep that from taking place. I mean, for all the effort and pain and everything that you went through, and then obviously that those girls are suffering through, just see it, all that effort, all it did was just dislocate them,
Yeah. I like what you're doing though. I mean, I would not even hesitate to pick it back up again and to go right to the landlords this time and just be like, look, since that seemed to work, to hold the landlord accountable, to be like, hey, you're breaking the law. You cannot live in commercial space. That's a law. I don't know if it's just the municipality of Anchorage, but I know that was
pretty common. That's a pretty common one.
You can't live in a commercial space. That's illegal. And you can't harbor that either, because yeah, I mean, I think that I love what you're doing. I think that it's, we can all do this together. We just have to know and not turn a blind eye to what's happening.
Right. And I appreciate it, but I'll turn it right back to you. And I appreciate the fact that like I absolutely love that you just like at this, right? And that's not everybody's grind, but I love that you did that. So to me, I think that I said this to you before when we spoke, but I honestly feel like you're an everyday hero, right? You're this person that's just kind of going along and doing your thing, but you did what you could do, and you went beyond what like anybody would have expected you to do, to say like, oh, if you like see something, say something. You did say something multiple times, and you just kept getting louder and kept on like this emotional investment. So I mean, we only have so much time, so I will I'll wrap it up with that. But thank you so much for obviously participating in this. And
thank you.
And you said that you'd be open if anybody's interested in speaking with you if they have something similar going on. Okay. All right. Well, Jen, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
That is all for this week's episode. If you believe there is sex trafficking taking place at an illicit massage parlor or spa in your neighborhood, please contact me at humantraffickinghater@gmail.com, because I am putting together a campaign to change the laws and effect real change against this common practice of allowing sex trafficking to exist in our communities. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because there are new episodes every week and you don't want to miss them. Thanks for watching.